Thank you. Welcome everybody to the British Hydrological Society Professional Development Month. It's our first webinar. We're delighted to have people with us today. My name's Joe Pearce. I'm President of the BHS. I'm joined today by Emma Cross, Chair of the BHS Education and Careers Subcommittee, who've brought this together. We're especially pleased to be joined by the Chartered Institution of Water and Environmental Management, CIWEM, as the focus of today's webinar. A warm welcome to Sophie Daneko, our guest speaker from CIWEM, and to Angela Barber, who's an Environment Agency hydrologist, sharing her experience of becoming chartered. Before we begin, I just want to draw your attention to the items on the right-hand side of the screen. We suggest you turn off your microphone. Our intention is that we're going to upload the recording to the BHS YouTube. Feel free to type any questions in the Q&A function throughout the presentation. You can always raise your hand during the Q&A session. And a reminder that we are going to be recording today's session. Next slide, thanks. See, we've still got people joining us, so hopefully people can catch up on the recording as well. So about us, today's session is part of our role in the British Hydrological Society, holding regular meetings and events, sharing and promoting hydrology, driving discussion and building collaborations. As well as producing hydrology-related communications, we promote careers and education in hydrology, and we want to support the development of all hydrologists. Next slide, thanks. I'll run through the planner for today's webinar. We're going to begin by explaining why we're hosting this Professional Development Month for hydrologists. Following this, we'll hear from our guest speaker, Sophie at CIWEM, who begin by talking us through the different CIWEM membership routes and then describe the process of applying for chartered status. Sophie will also explore the additional registrations of chartered scientist and chartered environmentalist. This will be followed by the Q&A session. Then we're going to hear from Angela Barber about reflections on becoming chartered with the opportunity for questions. Finally, we'll do a forward look, next steps and wrap up. Now I'll hand over to Emma Cross. Emma.
Great, thanks so much, Joe, thank you. So yeah, I'm Emma Cross and it's great to see you all today. I'm a BHS trustee and, like Joe's already suggested, chair of the Education and Careers Subcommittee, and I work as a water resources hydrologist in the Environment Agency, and I achieved my charterships over 10 years ago. So why a Professional Development Month? Well, this is something new for our society, and one of our key aims is to explain why chartership matters. We also want to outline the different routes to chartership so you can begin thinking about which pathway might suit you. And as a society, we're committed to strengthening our connections with the professional bodies that award charterships. So it's really fantastic to be working with CIWEM today, but also the Royal Meteorological Society, the Institution of Civil Engineers, and the Royal Geographical Society. And then just finally, we want to support you. We want to support you in taking your next steps with your professional development, whether this means starting application now or simply understanding what you might aim for in the future. Next slide, please. So through past work, the BHS has identified 6 chartered pathways for hydrologists. So these are chartered engineer, so C.Env, chartered environmentalist, C.Env, chartered scientist, C.Sci, chartered meteorologist, C.Met, chartered geographer, C.Geog, and chartered water and environmental manager, C.WEM. So throughout this month, we will be exploring these routes with the awarding bodies. Today's focus is obviously all about CIWEM, which offers the C.WEM and has a license to award the additional registrations of C.Env and C.Sci. Now, you might notice one title is missing, Chartered Hydrologist. Now, BHS has explored this in the past, but we found it was not possible. This is because to grant a charter title, an institution must hold a royal charter from the Privy Council, which is a government office. So that's our setting of the scene. So Sophie, if we could just move forward to the next slide, please. It is now time to hear from Sophie, but before I welcome Sophie, a reminder, there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of Sophie's talk. Please type your question into the Q&A function. There will also be the opportunity to raise your hand too. And also, please do feel free to switch off your camera, and a reminder that we will be uploading this presentation onto our BHS YouTube channel. So without further ado, welcome to Sophie. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'll hand over to you. Thank you, Sophie.
Brilliant, thanks very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sophie Deniko, the Director of Membership and Professional Standards at CIWEM. So for anyone that's not familiar with CIWEM, we are the Chartered Institution of Water and Environmental Management. We're an interdisciplinary institution that supports about 11,500 members across the UK and internationally. And those members work in a variety of roles across all aspects of water and environmental management. So today we're going to go through our routes to membership and then spend a little bit of time looking at the chartership process with CIWEM and our additional registrations. So CIWEM has a membership grade for whatever point in your career you're at. If you're at the very start, then you can join as a student or an apprentice. These are complementary memberships for your period of study, and application of this is online. You just need to submit some very basic information about who you are and what you're studying, and you'll gain access to things like our digital magazine, our journals, our branch activities, and all of the content that we put out via our members area and website. If you are in the workplace but very new to the sector, then either environmental partnership or graduate membership is right for you. Graduate is kind of what it says on the tin. For any course of study, no matter what you studied, you can join as a graduate member if you've got a UK honours or equivalent degree, and can start using those post-nominals grad CIWEM. If you are new to the sector but not out of university or have come into the sector later, then you can join as an environmental partner, and this provides all the support, including access to our mentor platform, to support you on your way into professional membership and hopefully chartership in the future. Again, both of these applications are very simple. They're online applications and just involve submitting some demographic details about who you are, where you work, a copy of your CV, for a graduate member, copies of any certificates and transcripts relating to your university career. Now we get on to our full or peer-assessed membership types. So M.Sci.WEM is CIWEM's equivalent of full member. This is for people that have been working in the industry for 2 years and typically come from an academic background. This is, as I said, a peer-assessed application. So you'll need to submit a written application that covers, again, that kind of pretty basic information about yourself, but you'll also be asked to write a 500-word statement giving an overview of your career and your role in the water environment sector. There's no interview or further assessment for M.Sci.WEM. It's just based on that written application. For M.Sci.WEM as well, you'll need 2 sponsors. So these should be chartered members, one of which should be a member of CIWEM, but the other one can be a member in any of the other institutions that have been mentioned already today, or any of the institutions that have licenses with the Engineering Council, the Science Council, or the Society for the Environment. Technician membership is really for those in technical focused delivery roles. This is a competence-based assessment and has a kind of technician version of our C.WEM competencies assigned to it. So it's a bit of a longer written application, but is all assessed on a written application. Again, there's no interview for technician. Then we get on to chartered. I'm not going to dwell on this too much because that's what the rest of my presentation is about. But our most senior grade of membership is fellow. This is for industry leaders, those have been committed and have given back to the sector during their career. There's no kind of age limit or working time limit for fellow, but it's assessed on a series of fellow attributes. And these look at your commitment, your influence and your impact on the sector. For fellow, there's a slight different sponsor requirement. You need 3 sponsors to apply for fellow, all of which should be fellows themselves, but only one of which needs to be a C.I.WEM fellow. The other 2 can, again, be fellows with any of those in Engineering Council, Science Council or Society for the Environment institutions. And this is really to ensure fellows have developed that professional network and gaining influence in their careers. So on to chartership. So CIWEM holds a royal charter, and in it we have the privilege of being able to award the Chartered Water and Environmental Manager qualification. This is unique to CIWEM, no one else can offer it, and as a result we are able to offer 4 chartered registrations, so Chartered Water and Environmental Manager, Chartered Engineer, Chartered Scientist and Chartered Environmentalist. The standard route for application for chartership is for those with a UK honours equivalent. For C.WEM, this is a level 6 equivalent, so you don't need to have done a master's course. Kind of honours equivalent is the standard route in. If you don't have an honours degree but have an extensive career in the sector, then you can apply via our work-based learning route. That is largely similar to all of the stages I'll discuss in the next few slides, but also involves an additional part of the written application that just gives you the opportunity to go into a bit more detail of your career and how that aligns to kind of some high-level degree outcomes. Yeah, as I said, CIWEM holds Engineering Council, Science Council and Society for the Environment licenses as well. So for C.Env and C.Sci, these are level 7 equivalents, so a master's level equivalent for the standard route in. You'll either apply for this alongside your C.WEM application, or some people do it at a later stage. For C.Env and C.Env as well, these are both a written application followed by a professional review interview, and C.Sci is typically only assessed on the written application. For C.Env as well, this is admission via the standard route is based on the Engineering Council's accredited courses, so you can check that on the Engineering Council website. If your course wasn't accredited, then you'll need a few extra steps to go through the work-based learning route, and if you think that's you, or if you're not sure about your degree, then please do get in touch with us. Application for these basically involves additional mandatory competence statements. So like C.WEM, each of these have a mandatory competence, a framework, and you'll have to write a statement against each of those in your written application, and they'll be covered in the professional review interview as well. So if you are looking to apply for multiple registrations, typically we see people apply for C.WEM and one other registration at their initial application, but some people apply for 2 or 3 of those additional registrations. It kind of just means your interview will be a little bit longer. So the application process, as I said, it's in 2 stages. So kicking off with the written application, and this is the same if you are a current member, so a graduate, an CIWEM or an environmental partner, or if you're not yet a CIWEM member and want to join us straight in at the chartered level. If you're awarded chartership, you'll be awarded C.WEM as well. So you'll become a chartered water and environmental manager and a member of the institution. So the application, the written application is also submitted online through our membership portal, My C.WEM, that will take you through all of the bits that you need to complete. So the written application is often described as a bit like a kind of funnel. We start off very wide with your CV and your career history. So the roles you've undertaken, how long you've been at those, and kind of what your high-level roles and responsibilities were. Before we go down into the career overview report that gives you the opportunity to provide a bit more of a narrative around your CV, in addition to those details like duration, titles, employers, we're keen to explore your or get an understanding of your involvement in making key decisions, recommendations, and any key learning topics. Then the mandatory competence report as well goes into one step further detail. So this is really the opportunity for you to talk about the impact and the responsibilities you have had in your career. It's split over the 14 mandatory competencies that we'll cover in a slide or two, and you have to write a piece of writing against each of those competencies. Typically, individuals will talk about 2, maybe 3 projects across the report and refer to them across all of the different competencies. This is really because the word limit is not exhaustive. It is a tight word limit, so it gives you the opportunity to go into a level of detail, but cover kind of more than one area. And the mandatory competence report is delved into much more detail in the professional review interview. So really, we're looking to understand your experience against the competencies, but that real kind of detail will be covered in the professional review interview. Then we'll ask copies of any relevant academic qualifications, any certificates, and these should be signed for verification by one of your sponsors. This can just be a digital copy with a digital signature, but we will check that during the submission. You'll also need those 2 sponsor letters, and if you are applying for any of those additional registrations, one of your sponsors must also hold one of those registrations. So for example, if you're applying for C.WEM, C.Env, you'll need 2 chartered sponsors, one of whom should be a C.Env. And we do have a lot of guidance on our website for sponsors, including some draft sponsor letters and a list of things that they kind of need to cover in that, and what they'll need to confirm in those letters, like their own registrations, that they've read the report and endorse its contents, and support your application. And the last bit of the application is your CPD record. I say the last bit, but I definitely don't recommend leaving this till last. For CIWEM, we ask for a 3-year CPD record that covers a minimum of 90 hours over that 3-year period. We recognise that people have a bit of peaks and troughs in their CPD, so that can be split across those 3 years, however best works for you. But we do ask for a minimum of 15 hours of CPD in any 1 year. And for CIWEM, CPD isn't just things that have been verified or formal training. What we're looking for is a range of activities. So that might be informal learning, reading things like the CIWEM member magazine, or content on our website or other news sources. It will include things like formal training, be it in work or in even kind of academic study, attending conferences, preparing for conferences, attending sessions like this. It's really, really broad. But we want to see some reflection on that CPD. So why you did it and how it's going to benefit your work in the long term. We don't need exhaustive reflection, usually just a couple of sentences is enough, but really, so you're showing an understanding of why you've done the CPD and how it's going to help you. We do have a CPD tool on our website that you can start using if you're a member. But if you do keep CPD records in other forms for your role or any other memberships that you might have, then you can upload it as a document, as a separate document in your application. Just make sure it covers those areas. So our application for chartership runs on a cycle across the year. We have 6 application deadlines that are kind of the second week of every even month. So we've got one on the 12th of February is our next one, then it'll be April, June onwards. The only slight change in that is the December. We don't have a December deadline, it just falls at the end of November instead. So once you submit, your application will be checked by a CIWEM member of staff, and if there's anything missing from it, you know, a document has been missed in an upload or a document isn't signed, we will give you an opportunity just to amend that, but it will need to be done quite quickly. If you take too long, your application will be deferred into the next cycle. Your application will then go for a peer assessment, so it'll go to other chartered members who have been trained to assess written applications, go to 3 assessors who will run through all of the aspects I've just covered, the mandatory competencies and the CPD record, and ensure that you have met those competencies and your CPD record meets our requirements. If you're successful, then that application will be ratified by our Professional Standards Committee, and that will take place towards the end of the month following the application deadline. So if you use the February deadline as an example, that will be ratified by our PSC towards the end of March. And if you're successful, you'll be invited to a professional review interview that will take place in kind of mid to late April. If at the written stage, for any reason, you're unsuccessful, you'll be given feedback on the competencies areas that you need to improve on. So these are the CIWEM mandatory competencies. They are similar to the C.Env, C.Sci and C.Env ones, but really focus on that broader water and environmental management. If you are applying for multiple registrations, you may use similar project or the same projects across your report, but do ensure that you're speaking to the registration that you're writing the report for. So an engineering one or a science one will have a particular kind of slant to it as opposed to your C.WEM application. Although we do recognise there will be overlap in some areas much more than others. So these competencies are split into 5 different sections. The A competencies are really looking at existing and emerging factors influencing issues that go beyond your immediate role. So A1 is looking at your knowledge of wider issues and trends, and A2 is reflecting that back into your sector. The B competencies look at planning, implementation and evaluation of work, so your ability to analyse, evaluate issues, how you go about solving problems and evaluating options, managing the change and implementing it as well. Finally, next, the C competencies look at safe and effective working practice, so your ability to manage resources effectively. That could be people, systems, budget, volunteers, a whole broad range of areas. Then your understanding of and promotion of health, safety and well-being. So this could be in your role itself, so health and safety related to a site role, an office role, but also if you do have something like a desk-based role, but your work involves delivery where other health and safety aspects need to be considered, then please include that too. Your contribution to sustainability, so this is in your role, but also could be anything that you might do in your day-to-day life. And then how you apply things like QA, ISO standards in your role and your work. The C competencies look at communication and professional ethics, so your ability to communicate well and how you work professionally, ethically, and comply with any codes of conduct. So that includes any membership bodies you're a member of, the CIWEM Code of Conduct and Professional Ethics, and any relating to your work as well. And finally, the E competencies. So that's the demonstration to CPD. So here you'll talk about your approach to CPD, and the CPD record is kind of the demonstration of that. And finally, your commitment to CIWEM. So this could be any commitment, existing commitment, but also how you might want to give back when you're chartered yourself. So supporting others, joining any of our networks, panels, groups, branches, or supporting our membership activities. So the word count for this is 4,000 words. Some competencies kind of naturally take up a few more of these word count, particularly in the kind of A, B and C's, and often the D's and E's take a few fewer words, but it is down to kind of what's right for you and your career. So the final bit of the application is a professional review interview. So this is typically a virtual interview, unless you want it to be face-to-face, but we do find the majority of people are happy to do it virtually in the comfort of their own home or office. And builds on the information provided in your written application, and really go into that in more detail and showcase your experience. So the interview is in 3 stages. It'll begin with introductions from the panel and for yourself, and the opportunity for you to outline your career review and kind of set the scene for the interview. This is usually around 5 to 10 minutes long. Then we'll move into the project presentation. So prior to the interview, you'll be asked to prepare a 10-minute presentation on a project piece of work that you've personally been involved with, and it's often one of the ones you've referenced in your mandatory competence report. Here and throughout the written application and the interview, we're really looking for your role. So very much talk from the I, the responsibilities and impact that you had in your work. After the presentation, there'll be questions from the panel on any specific, often technical aspects of the presentation, before the committee will move on to kind of general questions. So these will cover all of the mandatory competencies, the C.WEM ones, and any of those additional registrations you're applying for too. Generally, very much be prepared to talk about anything you reference in your competence report. Sometimes people will mention things, pieces of work that they perhaps did a while ago. If you've written about it, do be prepared to go into it in a lot more detail. And finally, the interview will close with the panel just checking that there's nothing you've missed. So if there's anything that you think really represents your demonstration of competence that you've not had the opportunity to talk about, or you want to kind of go back and provide a bit more detail of anything else throughout the interview, then that's your opportunity to do so. So typically the interview takes about an hour, but might take longer again if you are doing some additional registrations as well. Following the interview, you'll receive kind of the outcome of the interview, typically about a week later. That will just be an informal outcome until the following professional standards committee meeting, which will again, if you're doing your interview kind of late April, early May, that would be towards the end of May. After that, you'll receive your welcome pack, your certificate, and be able to start using those charter designations. If for any reason you have not demonstrated the competencies during your interview, you'll be given some really detailed feedback on the competence areas that you didn't demonstrate and some recommendations for improvement. And if you are successful, you'll be asked to submit your written application again and kind of begin that cycle. The interview panel may also make some recommendations on timings in terms of when they might feel you're kind of ready for that interview. So this is a bit of a high-level timeline. This isn't kind of a strict timeline, but often people ask us kind of how long an application takes. Sometimes people do it much shorter, sometimes people take much longer, but really this is just covering a recommendation of kind of where to start and what you might do. So we really do recommend starting recording your CPD record early, get that up to date and keep it up to date as well. If you are much earlier on in your career, then get in the habit of recording your CPD now, and then your chartership application will be just much smoother down the line. Start getting familiar with those C.WEM competencies, and you can start using those to drive your work as well. You can use them to get opportunities and map your work against the competencies and see where any gaps might be. Find your sponsors. They play a really important role, not only to verify your work, but also to support your application. So often people will have kind of one main sponsor, a bit of a mentor that really supports their application and their development through the application. Then choose the application deadline you want to submit by. This is often really the kind of the key point that starts the written work for that submission. Then get your career overview report, obviously managed competence report and CV, share those with your sponsors for feedback and do final checks on your CPD requirement. Then get ready to submit. And we really do recommend that if you have the opportunity to do some mock PRI sessions or even just be asked a few questions from your mentor, line manager, sponsor, or anyone else you know that might be chartered, then that really sets you up well for the interview. So I think that's the end of my slides now. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sophie. Wonderful, really helpful and supportive. So as Sophie's just mentioned, now is the opportunity to ask questions, and we'll start with the Q&A. So let me just go to those, and the good news is that we do have some questions. So one of the first questions was around the written application. So Sophie, what's the most important aspect to the C.WEM written application, please? Thank you.
So really the mandatory competence statement, that is what we're looking for, that demonstration of competence and results, and is the kind of core bit that is assessed. And the CPD record as well does form part of that assessment. The other elements, things like your CV and career overview report, are really designed so the assessors have a really good understanding of kind of who you are and at kind of your career to date, so they can look at the detail of that MC report and that CPD and kind of begin to pull together the jigsaw of your career and how that competence is being demonstrated.
That's great, super. Thank you, Sophie. We've also had a couple of questions around templates. Are there templates to use for the application process? For example, CPD record and also CV. Thank you, Sophie.
So for the CPD record, as I said, we do have a C.WEM CPD tool that's on our website, that's in our members area, My C.WEM. If you are a member already, then you just need to log in and find that. If you're not a member, then you can create an account and start recording your CPD. So that's kind of the template we'd recognise, but equally you can take a look at that and kind of often people have a kind of an Excel equivalent. What it looks at is what the CPD was. So for example, a BHS chartership webinar, the time you want to attribute to that CPD, and that's kind of your decision. You know, sometimes we'll go to along to maybe a 2-day event, but there's only, you know, a set period that really is CPD. It will ask you for a CPD category. This is really just so we can see the range of CPD that you've done. So that might be things like attending events, speaking, doing formal learning, and then it will ask you for your kind of reflection on that CPD, any next steps and future plans. In terms of the CV, we don't have a specific template. We recognise kind of everyone's CV looks a little bit different. If you work in a consultancy and have a project CV, people often submit those, but really we're just looking for your kind of career history. So the roles you've done, the duration, and what your kind of roles and responsibilities were.
Great, fantastic. Thank you again. So another question relates to, you mentioned 2 or 3 projects across the competencies. Is this different to the 2 examples per competency? Thank you.
So it's we say across that mandatory competence report, you should talk about 2, the maximum. Usually people talk about 2, but sometimes 3 projects. So that would be the kind of the same ones for each competence. Yeah, just stick to a couple of projects across that whole 4,000 words and across each of the competencies. It's not many words, and if you start using lots more projects, then it's more kind of introduction that just really absorbs that word count.
Lovely, thank you. Another question we've had posted is it important to be a member of C.I.WEM before applying for chartership? Will this help the process significantly?
I mean, I'm going to say yes to that question, but really it's
Absolutely.
down to you. Being a member will give you access to things like our magazines, our journals, all the content that we provide. So really help you prepare for things like the A competencies and the E competencies, your commitment to C.I.WEM. You'll also be able to access things like our mentor platform that can help you find a mentor to support in your application, either as a sponsor or just a kind of day-to-day support in anything specific to your career development. So it's not something that is assessed as part of the application. You know, we won't say, oh, you're new, therefore you need to kind of do anything different. That's not the case at all. But it really should help you be well prepared for your application and for your interview. And if you are looking to get become a chartered member quite soon, but kind of just want some of that access, then you can join us at that environmental partner grade. You'll pay an application fee, but that will cover your membership for the remainder of the calendar year, and you won't have to kind of pay that application fee again when you then kind of transfer to chartership. So it just gives you a kind of a bit of time to get familiar with C.I.WEM, what we do, and some of that those kind of content benefits while you're supporting your application as well.
Okay, wonderful. We've still got about 3 or 4 questions to go through if we've got time in the Q&A chat, but I just want to give anyone the opportunity to ask a live question. So if you'd like to kind of raise your hand and ask a live question rather than typing into the Q&A chat, now is your time. I'll just give it a minute or 2 just to see if there's any raised hands. If not, we'll return to the... Great. Great. So the person that's raised their hand, please feel free to ask the question. Do take yourself off mute though. Thank you.
Hi, very good presentation. Thank you very much for all the information. I'm Muri. I work for DFI Reverse here. So I do work in water sector from last 2 years, and I've seen it's been very recent. I started following C.I.WEM, and I'm a graduate member of ICE, and I also wanted to see what opportunities C.I.WEM. And I did see that there are some approved training agreements with some of the companies, and my company is not one of them. And how does that make a difference for getting opportunities to be a chartered if my company doesn't have a accredited training agreement with C.I.WEM? Thank you.
Yeah, so C.WEM has things called professional development schemes that are developed by organisations themselves, and it's really their kind of internal way of aligning kind of things like graduate training streams directly to things like the mandatory competencies. So it's a company led rather than a C.WEM led thing. So it won't impact or impact your application anyway that your company doesn't have that, and lots of companies will have an equivalent that they've not gone through the accreditation process for so it's really just designed as a way that organisations can get a bit of more support from C.WEM to ensure their internal processes are aligned to our chartership, but it won't affect if your company doesn't have one, then that doesn't influence your application, but would recommend finding a sponsor or a mentor that is chartered with C.WEM, and they can kind of make sure that they give you the right knowledge for kind of anything that's specifically C.WEM as opposed to things like the ICE.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Great, and thanks so much for the question. Now we've got an absolute flood of questions in the Q&A, so we're going to have to take some of these outside of the session, but I think we've got time just maybe for one, maybe two, and I'm going to join two questions together. So there's a question here around, are non-UK bachelor's, master's and PhD degrees accepted, and is this available to Africans staying in Africa? So I've combined those two questions. Sophie, thanks.
Yeah, so if you don't have a UK honours degree, then we'll use a system called NARIC just to check the equivalence. So if you aren't sure, then we recommend just sending us a copy of or details of your degree to membership@ciwem.org, and we can just double check that. And then if it isn't the equivalence, then you'll just need to apply through that work-based learning route, either for C.WEM or the level 7 equivalents for C.Sci or C.Env, and then the Engineering Council is a little bit different, and if you're not sure about that, I definitely recommend getting in touch with us. We have members from all over the world, and if you are coming from internationally, your local network might be a little bit smaller. So then that's a great opportunity to join earlier on in your career. So you can join things like the mentor platform and kind of build that professional network.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And just one other question, does PhD work and postdoctoral work count, or is it mostly or mainly work in an industry? I think this is in relation to the competencies. Thanks.
Yeah, so it definitely can count if you have work done during a postdoc or a PhD that you think helps demonstrate those competencies, then you can use it in your written application and use it in the interview. I think typically we'd recommend not just using kind of things, especially things like PhD studies in the application, because we are looking at that kind of practical demonstration, but you can use that experience. But as I said earlier, be prepared to talk about it in detail at the interview.
Great, fantastic. Thank you, Sophie. So I think that probably calls us to time with asking questions because we need to move forward. So thanks again for all your great questions in the Q&A chat. Yeah, we'll be sure to look at them afterwards and provide responses for those questions that we've not been able to answer. So I think this is now a time for me to hand back to Joe. So thanks again, Sophie.
Thank you very much, Emma, and thank you, Sophie. It's now my pleasure to introduce Angela Barber, who's going to share her experience of the process of becoming chartered with CIWEM. So putting what we've just heard from Sophie into practice. Angela.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, so next slide, Sophie. So yeah, we're just going through my journey of how I got to my chartered status in the next few minutes. Has it moved on? Hasn't moved on for me. Well, there we go. So just a bit of background, like Sophie shared, what courses people have done before they consider what chartership they might go for. I had a background in environmental science and then did a master's, but obviously, as proved, didn't need that to gain this qualification. It just meant the breadth of what I'd studied was a bit wider. And I joined C.WEM as a graduate when I started my first job as a consultant. And then a few years later progressed to the member status and then eventually applied for chartership in 2019, so a few years ago now. To move on, please. In terms of, I thought it'd be best to take you through kind of the different stages of those memberships and why I did different ones at different times. So in my early career, a little bit like the question that we just had live on call, I was encouraged to kind of look at what options I had for professional development, and I was part of an engineering company, and they did encourage people to do the ICE, and they had a professional scheme that they took people through with that. So they developed something similar for C.WEM. So I was encouraged when I started there to start logging kind of the CPD I did, to start attending events, and I worked in a rivers team, so the most appropriate kind of chartership route for me was recommended to be C.WEM. So at that point I joined and then had these regular sessions with a mentor in the office to go through projects I worked on and build kind of a backlog of kind of case studies that I really then in the future found useful, because I did change jobs eventually. While I was in that role though, they supported me to attend local events. At that point, pre-COVID life, if we can ever imagine that, everything was face-to-face, nothing was virtual. My employer let me go to events in Peterborough, probably monthly or bi-monthly. So I got that broad range of CPD exposure at the C.WEM events and networked with other people from the organisation. I also attended a Rivers and Coastal weekend on Norfolk Broads, which was again a great opportunity to meet peers and meet more experienced people who work in the sector, many of whom I'm still working with today. And that helped build kind of the basis of my journey on this, and helped me to build that kind of collection of evidence and the background to progress my membership from a graduate member to the member upgrade. So I did change jobs and work at the Environment Agency. I still work here. And at that point, I did the membership upgrade to the member status, as I was no longer really a graduate at that point. So that felt most appropriate. And I think they'd also just revamped how that process was, how you went through that process. So I just had to submit a statement along with my qualifications to upgrade. And while I was then at the Environment Agency, they were running fast track courses, which helped you to kind of consider what you had got in terms of your experience, what projects you might have in your locker, and what things you've done over your career, and helped you kind of focus what you might use for your chartered application. So I did that in 2018, I think, or very early in 2019, and then committed like about a 2-month period where I took like an hour every evening once I've got my kids to bed, because I was still young enough to actually go to bed, unlike now, and worked through those 14 competencies. And because you do them in a discrete way, it was much easier and felt more approachable than it was previously, when it was one very large report where you had to try and wrangle them all in. So by doing one a day, I kind of took an average of words. If you took 300 words per competency, you're nearly at around the 4,000 word count in total. And you obviously jiggle that about, because there are some that, as Sophie alluded to, don't need as many words as others. And I took one a day and then reviewed those, a bit like we do with our job applications. When you make them, you write something, but you rewrite it about 4 times to make it sound more impactful, to have all of the content that you want, to sell the right points. So it requires that kind of massaging of what you've written, but you need something to start with in the first place. And that was my main problem. And I feel most people find the challenging part. So I did that, and I managed to get my competencies all together. Throughout that time, I had 2 sponsors who were supporting me. They reviewed those for me and fed back that this is too wordy, this isn't really selling what it should be. They also, once I'd finished it, said this all now works, and also helped me to prepare for that interview. Probably move on to the next slide now, actually, because it might be moving towards the actual interview prep. So once I'd submitted all of that competence material, my CV, my career journey, I then looked at, well, what did I need to do for that interview? As Sophie already alluded as well, having them available to say, oh, what sort of questions might come up. So being very prepped on what I'd submitted, being knowledgeable about my actual projects was really good. I then created that kind of case study for that 10-minute session, and delivered that to like colleagues in my team who weren't even anything to do with C.I.WEM, just to practice doing it in 10 minutes. And at that point, I think it also wasn't, you didn't have PowerPoint. I don't know what you do now in the interviews, whether with them being virtual, there's a point of that, or whether you can just speak. I just had to speak for 10 minutes to people to present my project, and got some feedback, so that helped me again improve that, and also some prep on what sort of questions you might be asked, because they are looking for you to demonstrate a very broad breadth of knowledge across the environmental sector. That might mean it's areas you don't work in on a day-to-day basis. So having that broader knowledge, particularly in kind of health and safety aspects, and policies and structure and stuff, that they can be a bit out there. So having someone who you know who has been in that process, who might be a peer reviewer or who might sit on panels, who can just give you some insights and share with you what kind of questions you may get asked, is really, really useful in advance. I then went to the board in April, face-to-face, to do my interview, and was successful. And then since gaining my chartership, I've gone on to sponsor some colleagues through their journey to chartership, and helped promote C.I.WEM in a similar way to I am today, with colleagues in the Environment Agency, as well as through the Women in SRM network that I help support as a mentoring co-lead. So yeah, I still attend events when I can. The fact that we've now gone virtual makes my life easier with 2 children, because attending physical events at dinner time was always very tricky. But it's an organisation that's got a lot of resources, it's got a lot of passions. If you want to help the environmental sector, there are lots of things you can get involved with. The Rivers and Coastal Group is one area, but there's lots of opportunities there. I think that's it from me.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Angela. That does some really good insights and reasons to pursue the chartership with C.I.WEM. There is an opportunity to ask questions. I don't think we have any in the published as yet.
There might be one, Joe, about C.I.WEM. Is it standard to become a hydrogeologist? Is it standard to become a C.I.WEM member as a hydrogeologist? I don't know. I guess I was an environmental scientist. I think anything in this watery world can count. So it's got hydro in it. So I'd say potentially yes. Sophie might nod her head.
Yeah, I think it's about which kind of professional institution feels the best for you. So do take a look at what we write, our content on our website, and if you feel that kind of aligns best with your work, your roles, then I think that would speak to C.I.WEM being the right professional home.
Yes, and you might want to tune into some of our later presentations during the Professional Development Month as well. So there will be a variety, but thank you. Does anybody want to put their hand up to ask a question? Ask Angela about her experiences going through the processes.
Can always use the others to answer some more Sophie related ones if we need. More beneficial.
Shall we do that?
Yeah, I think we've got enough time maybe just for the one. If not, then we probably need to move forwards to the kind of last part. So we could grab one question there if we like. Like I saw one about costs, Sophie. I don't know if you've got an answer you could provide just in like a 60 seconds kind of thing. That would be great.
Yeah, so the cost varies across the grade. It goes from about £150 to a fellow, which is in the high 300s. You pay an application fee of £155 or £100 if your organisation is a business partner. When you submit as a new applicant, then it's just the case of those annual application fees. For C.I.WEM, the professional review interview is £195. So I think similar to many others, and probably a bit less than from the likes of ICE.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That's brilliant. And I want to say thanks again to Angela and thanks to Sophie. That's given us lots to think about and some brilliant insights into gaining the chartership. Thank you. We'll move on now, if we may, Sophie. Thank you. And we're on our final few slides now. Going back to the start of today's webinar, we explained one of our key goals was to explain the benefits of chartership. So we hope that's given you some good insights and through sharing the information today. But this slide does give some extra thoughts on that. So some examples of benefits from gaining and seeking chartership and becoming chartered is professional recognition, personal development, career development, networking opportunities, fulfillment and motivation in your role, and personal credibility. And with that, I'll hand back to Emma.
Great, thanks so much, Joe. Thank you. So yeah, if we could move to the next slide, please, Sophie. Thanks. Fantastic. So moving on to the next step. So we'd like you to reflect on what you've learned today and what your route to chartership might be. We'd also like to know how you found today and how we might be able to support you with your professional development through a follow-up survey. So please do find the time to complete that, and the link is being posted into the Q&A for you. We do plan to share the materials from our professional development month, including uploading this recording onto YouTube. So please do keep an eye on our website. There's likely to be a delay. You probably won't see anything until March on our website. And if not already, then please do consider becoming a member of BHS and also CIWEM. Again, find links in the Q&A. Next slide, please. A reminder that this is the first of 4 webinars. We regroup next Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and we'll be joined by the Royal Meteorological Society. Then webinar 3 is on the 18th with the Institution of Civil Engineers. And then our 4th and final webinar is on the 25th with the Royal Geographical Society. If you're not already registered for the following events, then please you'll find links in the Q&A. We've also posted on this slide other events. So just to do a shout out that next Wednesday and Thursday is the Floods and Droughts Research Infrastructure Workshop on floodplain flow measurement. We're a joint partner. Places are now only available online. Again, see a link in the Q&A. And then on the 17th of June, we are a co-partner for the Drought in the UK conference. So please keep an eye on our website for further information. And then between the 2nd and 4th of September is our BHS 16th National Hydrology Symposium at the University of Leeds. And it's entitled Reimagining Hydrology for a Changing World. The good news is that we've opened for abstracts for presentations and posters on Monday of this week. Closing date for this is Friday, the 3rd of April. Registrations for the actual symposium open on the 2nd of March. So to find out more, please find links in the Q&A. Final slide, please. So we thought we'd send you on your way with this inspirational quotation from Hannah Burgess, who is the former president of CIWEM. So let me read it out to you. Applying for chartership is your chance to shine, to showcase your career to date, and to show people how passionate you are about making our water and wider environment a better place for everyone. So go for it. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Joe to do a final wrap up. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you very much, Emma. I finished by saying thank you to everybody who's joined today. I'd like to finally thank again our speakers, Sophie and Angela, and also you, Emma, and Alex Scott from JBA and others who've been involved in organising today's event. Thank you to JBA Trust and Group for their use. They've hosted this Teams event for us today. Thank you. And they've been behind the scenes helping with make today's webinar run. So finally, I say, please stay connected with us. We hope you enjoy this, and we hope you enjoy the rest of our professional development month. As Emma said, it will be posted, but please be patient waiting for that. Thank you very much. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.